We'll use artificial intelligence to make jobs simpler for staff and tasks easier for consumers. Artificial intelligence, or AI, is a very powerful tool, and like any powerful tool, it can do a lot of things, some of which are good and some of which may end up being problematic. And our tech expert, Dave Hatter, joins us now to talk about how AI can actually have its very own biases, that sort of thing. Artificial intelligence is problematic because it's based on algorithms, which, if you encounter X and Y, you do C. If you encounter X and Y plus D, you do something else, and that sort of thing. But these are things all programmed by human beings.
You know, you did a nice summary there, John, and I think that's an excellent way to describe it. I mean, at the end of the day, it's software, right? Human beings write that software. Sometimes human beings have implicit biases they may not even realize, so those get baked into the software. And AI also depends on big data and machine learning, lots of data. So as it attempts to learn how to get better at whatever it's trying to do, it's generally using very large sets of data, which themselves could have implicit bias baked in, and that's where it starts to get really tricky to understand how did it arrive at a certain decision.
Yeah, I see it problematic as an example. Like I know some industries, not so much here, but in other countries, they use it for job interviews. It started off well enough where they were trying to remove the bias of the interviewer, but in fact, it may have something else baked in.
Well, exactly. So if you have in many cases, to your point, they're using this in interviews. They're using facial recognition. They're watching a candidate. They're using visual cues the candidate is giving and comparing that to large sets of data to try to determine, is this candidate telling the truth? Is this candidate going to be good on the job? But again, depending on how the software itself is written, and it may not be malicious at all. It just may be implicit biases that creeped in, or things that the programmers did not anticipate, or the data itself, it can unfortunately exclude people that might be a great fit for that job. And how will you know that it's making these erroneous decisions? Because if you have 10 million lines of code you have to test, you literally have an exponential amount of permutations. It becomes very difficult, and that's, I think, the concern that many philosophers and ethics type people are raising. How can you determine what decision it made, and is it the right decision?
I know a lot of times people are quick to jump on the bandwagon for something that's going to lighten the load, so to speak. Are people listening to those who are bringing up these kind of ethical and moral kind of questions?
I think that's an important question, and my personal take on it is not yet. I don't think most people realize how close we are to this, and I'm not saying that tomorrow Skynet will become aware and the Terminator is going to wipe us all out or anything, John. But these kinds of applications, whether it's determining who gets a loan, who gets parole, who gets hired for a job, are increasingly automated. And as the software gets better and we get closer to literally sentient computers that can think for themselves, and I don't know how close we are to that, but I think it could happen in our lifetime potentially, how will you determine how that software / computer made that decision, and is it the right thing? So I'm hoping people will take this stuff seriously and pay attention to it, because it could be great or it could go really bad, and we need to get out in front of this before the genie is completely out of the bottle.
There's been said about a lot of other things. Just because it can doesn't mean we should.
And I agree completely, John.
All right, Dave Hatter, thank you so much.
Thank you.